Hello everyone. In this unit, we are going to discuss socialization and understand how society gradually shapes the way we think and behave. Let us start with a simple question. What is socialization? Socialization is the process of teaching children how to interact with others, how to behave in a social setting, and what is considered acceptable in society. For example, children are taught to greet elders, share what they have with others, show respect, and speak politely. These are all part of socialization. Now, let us understand another important concept, that is gender socialization. Gender socialization is the process through which society teaches us what behavior and roles are considered appropriate for women and men. Many children grow up hearing statements like girls should be gentle, girls should take care of the family, boys should be brave, boys should not cry. See, after hearing these ideas repeatedly from childhood, we gradually begin to accept them as normal. We hear the same ideas are repeated by our family, school, media, friends, society, etc. These are called the agents of gender socialization because they influence how we think about gender. Now, here is one of the most important thing you should understand. There are no male qualities or female qualities. There are only human qualities. Being caring, emotional, compassionate, or being bold, adventurous, or confident, these are all valuable human qualities. They are not the qualities of any specific gender. However, when society starts dividing these human qualities into male qualities and female qualities, people often feel pressured to stay within those boundaries. A girl who is bold and adventurous may be told that's not how girls should behave. Or a boy who is caring and emotional may be told that's not how boys should behave. When these expectations are accepted without questioning them, they can restrict our lives in many ways. People may hide their true interests, avoid certain careers, or suppress parts of their personality simply to fit into society's expectations. But have you ever wondered why people try so hard to fit into society's expectations? One of the biggest factors is fear. When someone behaves differently or chooses a path that goes against the gender expectations, society will criticize them, judge them, isolate them, or disgrace them in all possible ways. Because of this fear of rejection, many people simply accept gender norms without questioning them. This prevents individuals from pursuing what they truly love and living the life they genuinely want. The more we question stereotypes instead of blindly accepting them, the more freedom we create for ourselves to live according to our talents, interests, and dreams. We have already understood it is our society that teaches us how women should behave or how men should behave. But what does this actually look like in real life? Let us see what it is like to grow up as a girl. Many girls grow up with more restrictions than boys. They are often told to dress carefully, behave properly, avoid going out late, and are always asked to think about their safety first. Even today, many girls experience pressure to sacrifice their own dreams for their family. Some are discouraged from pursuing higher education, certain careers, or opportunities simply because of their gender. Even in the workplace, many women continue to face challenges such as unequal opportunities, unequal pay, etc. Although society has changed a lot and women today are excelling in every field, many of these challenges still exist. Now let us look at the other side. Boys also grow up with many challenges. Many boys are taught that real men don't cry. They are expected to hide their emotions, always be strong, earn well for the family, and carry the responsibility of the family even when they are struggling themselves. Society often praises boys for being bold and fearless, which forces men to prove their courage through risk taking behaviors. This is one of the reasons why young men are more likely to engage in dangerous driving, reckless adventures, substance abuse, or physical fights. There is another fact that many students find really surprising. Globally, around 3 out of every 4 people who die by suicide are men. Around 72 to 74% of people who die by suicide in India are men, while women account for only about 26 to 28%. There are many reasons behind this: financial pressure, unemployment, family or relationship problems, untreated mental health issues, etc. But one thing is very clear: if society was truly designed only to benefit men, we would not be seeing such a large number of men struggling in silence. This tells us that unhealthy gender expectations are enormously harmful, especially for men. But why don't we hear about men's problem very often? One reason is that many of men's struggles are invisible. Society teaches boys to stay strong, not complain, and handle everything on their own. Because of this, many men hesitate to talk openly about their emotional struggles or seek professional help, even from their own family members or life partners. Imagine how many lives could be saved if men felt comfortable asking for help instead of silently carrying the burden alone. There is another important change that is happening today. For many years, society focused on empowering girls, helping them become financially and emotionally independent. As a result, women today are proving themselves in almost every field. Now it is time to focus on our boys and make them independent too. Many boys still don't know the basic life skills such as cooking, cleaning, or managing a house because they believed it's women's work. In fact, all these are essential life skills that every adult should learn. When these boys grow into an adult, they become completely dependent on others even for their food and daily living. Many boys also grow up seeing women being controlled or dominated within their own families. Without realizing it, they carry some of these attitude into adulthood. That is why boys today need not only life skills but also social skills. They need to unlearn outdated stereotypes and learn how to build healthy, respectful, and equal relationships with women. When we remove unnecessary gender expectations, both women and men become happier, healthier, and more confident individuals. We have already understood how girls and boys grow up with different expectations from society and how these expectations create challenges in their personal and professional lives. Now, let us see what happens when these boys and girls grow up, get married, and try to build a life together. The gender expectations they learned during childhood often enter their relationships. And when outdated gender roles enter a relationship, both women and men suffer. Let us understand how. It is a common custom in our society for a woman to move into her husband's home after marriage. Many women are terrified of this. But why? There are both emotional and practical reasons. Emotionally, she has to leave the house where she lived all her life. She may feel like an outsider in her husband's house, experience a lack of emotional support, and face constant pressure to adjust to a completely new environment. Practically, some women experience unfair treatment, lack of respect, lack of privacy, constant monitoring, verbal abuse, pressure to carry out cooking, cleaning, and other household responsibilities even when they are working just like their husbands, or controlling behavior from family members. Living in such environment can lead to stress and mental health problems. As men usually do not experience these challenges themselves as they are living in their own home, they may fail to notice what their wives are going through. They may also find it difficult to set healthy boundaries with family members or provide the emotional support their wives need. Unfortunately, this weakens the marriage. Instead of becoming life partners, the couple begins dealing with stress, frequent conflicts, and emotional distance, which sometimes even leads to separation. That is one reason why many young couples today choose to live independently after marriage, at least for a few years. It gives both husband and wife an opportunity to truly know each other, communicate openly, and build a strong relationship without constant interference from close family members. Now, let me walk you through another pattern that can be seen in some families and that can seriously damage a marriage. Many boys grow up hearing that a man should be the head of the family and that his role is to control or dominate the women around him. A good man earns respect through responsibility, kindness, and good character. A man who lacks these qualities tries to gain control through sarcasm, humiliation, insults, anger, or even violence. This is what we call toxic masculinity. Think about it for a moment. If a husband constantly criticizes his wife in front of others, body shames her, ignores her opinions, or makes her feel inferior, will she be able to truly love and respect her husband? Now, how does the society react to it? Have you ever noticed that when a man makes fun of his wife or humiliate her, people often say it's just a joke and everyone laughs. But if a woman does the same to her husband, suddenly she is labeled rude or arrogant. As children, many of us may have laughed at such jokes without thinking much about them. But humiliation hurts everyone, regardless of gender. When a husband repeatedly humiliates his wife, especially in front of others, she gradually loses emotional trust and affection towards him. Slowly, the emotional bond between husband and wife begins to disappear. A relationship cannot survive where one person seeks control instead of mutual respect. In some families, this unhealthy pattern continues into the next generation. A woman who experiences disrespect or emotional neglect from her husband over time become emotionally overdependent on her son. She may become overprotective, excuse his mistakes, praise him even when he is wrong, and avoid giving him responsibilities. But why does this happen? Because since she does not receive emotional support from her husband or his family, she begins to place all her emotional hopes on her son. As a result, the son may grow up without learning important life skills, emotional responsibility, or accountability. When he gets married, these drawbacks become a source of conflict. His wife frequently points them out, while his mother keeps on pampering him. Naturally, the son chooses his mother over his wife. If the son is unable to resolve the issues in his character and establish a healthy boundary with his mother, the marriage will suffer. So, this creates a toxic cycle. The husband disrespects his wife, the emotionally neglected wife develops an unhealthy attachment to her son, the son grows up without emotional maturity and repeats the same unhealthy relationship pattern in his own marriage. This cycle continues unless someone consciously chooses to break it. This is one of the reasons why many young women today hesitate to marry and why many marriages face difficulties. Women have changed. Many are financially independent, highly educated, and emotionally aware. But some men are still following relationship patterns that belong to an earlier generation. Now, let us consider another scenario. What if the mother who has experienced emotional neglect from her husband happens to have a daughter instead of a son? In this scenario, also, more or less the same pattern gets repeated. The mother becomes emotionally overdependent on her daughter. As they spend years supporting each other, the emotional bond gradually becomes an unhealthy dependence. When the daughter gets married, the problem begins. Even if her husband is kind and respectful, she may constantly fear being treated the way she saw her mother being treated by her father. As a result, even a small disagreement between husband and wife may feel much bigger than it actually is. Instead of resolving the issue through an open communication with her husband, she may immediately turn to her mother for advice or emotional support. What could have been a small misunderstanding between the couple may gradually become a larger conflict because of repeated interference from her mother. Over time, this can create emotional distance between husband and wife and weaken their relationship. Whether the unhealthy attachment is between a mother and her son or a mother and her daughter, the result is often the same. Toxicity does not simply disappear. If it is not consciously addressed, it is often passed from one generation to the next. The good news is that this pattern can be changed. There is an immediate need for boys and men to unlearn unhealthy ideas about masculinity. When boys are taught to respect women as equals, share responsibilities at home, communicate openly, and express emotions in healthy ways, relationships become stronger, happier, and more peaceful. Gender sensitization is not about changing women anymore. It is about helping both men and women build healthier relationships together. Now that we have discussed how unhealthy gender expectations can affect marriages and relationships, let us look at another serious problem that our society has faced for a very long time. This phenomenon is called missing women. The term missing women refers to millions of girls and women who are absent from the population because they were never allowed to be born or did not receive the same care, nutrition, or health care as boys and men throughout their lives. In other words, they are missing not because they disappeared, but because discrimination prevented many of them from surviving or even being born. The important question is, how does this happen? One reason is sex selective abortion. Sex selective abortion is the practice of identifying the sex of an unborn baby during pregnancy and ending the pregnancy if the baby is female. Many years ago, parents had no way of knowing whether they were going to have a boy or a girl before birth. However, with the advancement of medical technology, techniques like ultrasound scanning made it possible to identify the sex of the fetus during pregnancy. These technologies were developed for a very good purpose to monitor the health and development of the baby. Unfortunately, in some places, they were misused to identify female fetuses and terminate the pregnancy simply because the baby was a girl. The impact of this misuse was clearly reflected in India's child sex ratio. In the 1991 census, there were 945 girls for every 1,000 boys in the 0 to 6 age group. By the 2001 census, this had fallen to 927 girls, and in the 2011 census, it further declined to 919 girls per 1,000 boys. These numbers may not sound alarming at first, but when we apply them to India's population, they represent millions of missing girls. Nobel Prize winning economist Amartya Sen estimated that India had around 37 million missing women. Later, studies placed the figure at around 43 to 44 million. Recognizing the seriousness of this issue, the Government of India introduced strict legal measures. The Preconception and Prenatal Diagnostic Techniques Act, commonly known as the PCPNDT Act, prohibits the use of diagnostic techniques for determining the sex of an unborn child except for genuine medical reasons. Under this law, doctors are not allowed to reveal the sex of the fetus to parents. Sex selective abortion is illegal. Hospitals and diagnostic centers that violate the law can face severe penalties, including cancellation of their license, fines, and imprisonment. But laws alone cannot solve the problem. Real change begins when our thinking changes. Every child deserves the same love, the same opportunities, and the same chance to live. Just think about it. How can anyone justify parents ending the life of their own child simply because of its gender? What does it say about a society when a child needs protection from its own parents? Unfortunately, sex selective abortion is not the only reason for missing women. In some families, girls receive less nutritious food, delayed medical treatment, or fewer educational opportunities than their brothers. Even as adults, many women ignore their own health while taking care of everyone else. There is another important issue that many people are not even aware of. In India, women are significantly more likely to donate organs but much less likely to receive them. Around 80% of living organ donors are women and only about 20% are men. At the same time, around 80% of transplant recipients are men and only 20% are women. Even in life saving procedures such as kidney and liver transplants, women are less likely to receive an organ. This raises an important question: how is one human life more valuable than the other? In the past, many people believed that sons would earn for the family and support their parents in old age. At that time, many women were not allowed to study or work. Naturally, some families believed that sons were a better investment. But look at today's world. Women are scientists, doctors, engineers, entrepreneurs, pilots, and even political leaders. Many daughters support their parents financially and emotionally, sometimes even more than their sons. So, the reasons that once led people to prefer sons no longer make sense in today's society. When girls are not valued equally, the consequences affect the entire society. A shortage of women can lead to problems such as human trafficking, forced marriages, and increased violence against women. In other words, discrimination against girls eventually creates problems for everyone. That is why the government of India launched the Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao campaign. Its message is very simple: save the girl child, educate the girl child. The next generation should never ask, is it a girl or a boy? Instead, it should celebrate the birth of a healthy child. That is the kind of society we all should strive to build. I hope you now understand how gender socialization influences our lives in ways we often don't realize. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next topic.